All right, I'd like to call to order the Westerly Public Schools School Building Subcommittee meeting for Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. The time is 6:03. Members present are Steve Marone, Cindy Kirchhoff, Kristen Federico, Giuseppe Giancarelli, Michael Olber, Dr. Mark Garceau, and Mark McKinnon, and with us as a guest, and myself, Justin Hopkins, and with us as a guest is our owner's project manager, Deb Reading from Downs Construction Corporation. First order of business is approval of meeting minutes. You should have received the minutes from our October 9th meeting. If there are no modifications to these minutes, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. We have no members of the public here. So we will go, I do not believe we have any approval of invoices tonight, correct? Okay, so we will go right to owner's project manager, architect update.
Absolutely. To give you all a quick update on the projects, Dunn's Corner. They poured the slab yesterday for the addition. So that's exciting. So we'll be starting to close that building in. And they're still working out and back. They're doing the water retention system right now, and then they'll move over to the sanitary system after that. The rocks have been all removed from the site, so we're looking to get a final tally on those this week, shadowed by Friday. Over at Springbrook, they have the foundation, the forms up, ready to pour concrete. That'll be the next project, and I'll probably be next week, so I'll be doing that. Then they'll they already have steel up there as well. So they'll be pouring those slabs, so we're starting closing those buildings as well. So again, very exciting. The roof, they are meeting on site tomorrow to have a closeout walkthrough. And still, they're just waiting for that one operating mover at the front of the cupola. So we should be finishing up that project very soon.
The little trim work is done now.
Yeah.
It's the back loop, so you really don't notice it pretty.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Right, it's at the back, excuse me, it's on the front. And State Street, they're over there putting in the aggregate piers and working away at that, as Kristen well knows, and running into lots of large rock.
Well, that's what we're shaking.
Yeah. So every time they run into a rock, they run the machine as far as they can to see if they'll bump out of the way, and it's pretty cool to watch it happen. I don't know if you're hearing squealing, but it's a giant machine out there.
Oh, we love watching that.
Giant auger.
It's like a big, huge, ginormous drill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, but they love it.
Yeah, it'll sometimes kick the rock out of the way, but if it doesn't, they gotta pull the machines out, and then the site contractor goes in, digs, gets the big rock out, backfills it, and they start over again. But they're working through the process.
So are they removing the rocks or are they just putting them off to the side for now?
They'll be removing them, yes. They will be removing them.
Yeah, that can be kind of expensive.
It can be. We already have rock we have two different scopes. Rock outside the building footprint, they didn't own, and they've already broken up that rock and removed it. We have that reported. Rock within the footprint, they own some of it, so we're working out that quantity as well. So it's all getting tallied up, but we don't want to stop the process right now.
No.
It's that contractor's got to be working. So
On that note, Deb, remember the discussion we had about the big boulders at Dunn's? What did we decide? Because remember we talked about putting them way back on the, the perimeter.
I think those have been.
those are the ones that were removed.
Oh,
So here was the issue. So when we brought this back to the GC, they correctly said, well, we did excavate them, pull them out of the ground, move them once. We'll move them again, but at some point there, you owe us something because now we'll be touching them twice. And the next move that we would be owning would be into our truck to take them away because they have a unit price for rock removal. They said, but, you're gonna have to pay us something anyway. And then we had a couple of companies we contacted about taking around. They weren't really interested. We may have one who's working over at the Charlestown Breachway who may be interested in the future, but the rock that was out there was creating a problem because it was in the way of finishing the water retention system. So we said, we were able to move the allowances around. So right now, it's a cost, but it's not an additional cost to approve right now. So we moved the allowances around, we paid for the rock that has been removed. whatever we come across with the septic system, then we can talk about. We'll have
Posted on
better
Facebook
plans.
by a staff member there.
Yeah.
Does anybody want rocks? And I was like, oh, I don't know what that.
I
was.
know. This is how this trying to get right. Should have saw them on the street corner, but this may work out with this,
I do, yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, we just, you can't have them hanging around the site too long. Like some of them are bigger than my Jeep, so,
I know, I just worried a little when I went out to Facebook, like, we don't know what we're doing, and we have to have Facebook people come and get the rocks. I didn't want that look to go out, you
That's
know?
true. We don't really mind just anybody coming and saying.
I don't think anybody
I don't think.
directed anybody to
Oh, I
ask.
used to read it, but it, it still would come back to us, wouldn't it?
Unfortunately, we don't have many takers. There's too many rocks around. So, yeah,
Of all the things I'm seeing on Facebook these days, that's probably the more benign thing.
yeah.
No, when I saw it, I was like.
Does anybody want any rocks? Springbrook, luckily, we just run into sand.
That's
There's
good.
no rocks over there, so it'd be great when we get out of the ground on all these projects,
Right.
and not running into rock.
Can I just ask a question about Springbrook?
Sure.
But it's not nothing to do with the building project, but they don't have a sign on the front of their property, do they? It's just, they have a little tiny green sign, but.
And something, like a construction sign?
No,
Or-
just like a regular Springbrook School.
Yeah, you go right, to the right.
Yeah, so it's,
Oh, you can't see it from the road, well.
No.
Not from the road, no. You gotta come onto the property over that bridge and then they just actually redid that.
I was gonna
Oh, they
say,
did?
yeah, it's on the right side, right, in the
Yeah.
house there.
I guess when I was one. Sorry.
Yeah, there is a sign. Maybe one of the backside too.
There's nothing on the back.
But, so everything is going according to plan right now. Projects are doing well, so we're on schedule, we're on budget, which is what I was gonna talk about next. Is, I hope everybody got a chance to look at least this top page real quick. This summarizes the attached control budgets, which are all updated with everything we have approved to date and everything we've paid to date. So right now, getting down to the important number, our total surplus. Now, what I mean by surplus was the unassigned difference between our project budgets and, what the bids came in at. So that we had a little kitty of fund that didn't get assigned to any projects. So our total surplus, along with the contingencies that are actually in the individual projects and not yet utilized, we're at 2.9 million. So we're still looking good.
and how much money have we spent so far? You know?
Wow.
Nope. Nothing anymore.
Well, I guess, if we assume all of the direct costs, so the hard bid numbers that we've gotten on everything. Let's see again. The hard bid numbers for all three projects were round up 42.6 million. So our
You could take out that.
contingency, yeah, I'm just gonna go from the start here.
Probably just take that. Fine.
So our current surplus is about 6.8% of the total construction cost, which is an industry standard to carry for contingency is 5%. So we're still sitting with a pretty healthy contingency, and we're probably 30%, 40% into Dunsmore and Springbrook in terms of the cost, maybe
In terms of the
50.
cost,
Yeah.
and certainly getting over the high risk items, high exposure. I mean, the biggest thing out there certainly is block right now in the corner. Then we had the moisture issues over at Springbrook. So between the two of them, they got an early hit. So coming out of that, hopefully we're not gonna have any more surprises or big surprises. We might even want to be looking at adding a little bit of scope afterwards. I know we were talking about you're doing all the hardware at the school. And we're adding that into the scope, so, they were gonna have a price to present in a meeting on that.
Yeah, once we get out of the ground, that's, as you mentioned, on all the projects, including once we get through all the piers and stuff for, State Street, I think that's when you can start talking about, allocating, maybe let's continue to set aside 4 or 5%, but whatever is represented as an overage may be scope that we can put back in the project.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Sounds good. So that's where we are money wise. And there were 2 other issues we wanted to talk about tonight. I don't know if you wanted to.
Maybe I can, maybe I'll take it from there. Well, actually,
Oh, we do have an action item. right? We're
Yeah.
gonna find out.
so, in the scrum of items with the town, there's a request from the town to do a hydraulic testing report, similar to what we did for State Street. This frankly just has not been done for Dunn's Corner Elementary. It's a cost of $4,820. We've asked whether or not this could be a cost borne by the town, but it's frankly a service that the town pays hydraulic modeler that we frankly need to do. And they probably should have asked for it a while ago. But nonetheless, here we are. So what we need is authorization to approve C&E Engineering's proposal for the hydraulic testing report fee for Dunn's Corner Elementary School in the amount of $4,820. This needs to be a formal motion and an approval, but before I ask for a motion, are there any questions about this? This is something that every development in town is required to do through the water department. I think the original assumption is that because it was an existing school at Dunn's, we didn't need to do it because we're already drawing water. But because we're adding the fire protection to the project, that's when the water department will ask for it. So what the model does is it gives all of the information back to the town so that they can then plan, when the next development comes, they can assess whether or not we have appropriate water pressure and capacity for the development.
This information doesn't really affect our project. It's how our project is affecting the water supply in that area.
Yeah.
So that gives the town all the updated information now. So when they go to do anything else around there, they know how that, what that impact is on the capacity.
So you need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, any further discussion? Everybody kind of understands what we went over. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay.
And if I may, just really quick, I want to give everybody a good update. I think it is on the gym floor. I think we all know we've had some issues at Dunn's Corner with the new gym floor. And it became dirty, marked. The installer came out, cleaned it, didn't have good results. So we had to come out and clean it again, didn't have good results. They upped the cleaning process with maintenance, and they spent countless years of their life cleaning that floor, still nothing good. And then Columbus Day, the installer came out one more time and cleaned vigorously. And now the floor is actually in worse shape than it was before they started this process. It's abraded, it's marked, it's dull. I think we've actually gone through the top layer of the finish. So they have agreed that next summer they'll come out and they will resurface the whole gym at no cost. So.
And the marks were from them when they were installing?
Well, they're marked from sneakers and all that, but they wouldn't come off the floor, and that's not normal. These
Oh,
floors
okay.
should clean.
Oh,
It's as
okay.
if the floor just became a magnet for anything that was on it. Just
So
literally-
something was wrong.
Something was wrong.
Okay,
We
like
think
the
that the
solution or whatever was on it,
Yeah.
something was wrong.
we think that the top coat didn't set right
Mhm.
or wasn't done correctly because it just didn't seem to have a protective layer. And so they agreed to come out and which is what they should be doing. And honestly, that was really was because of Ashley, who's so persistent with them and documented and stand on top of them. So that's a good thing. No, we'll talk
So
about it.
This floor doesn't come up, it's just a new top
Right,
coat.
we don't know how that works, but Ashley put that question out. How does this work? What does it do to the warranty? Can you give them other projects when you've done this for reference?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk to them and make sure that they didn't have any long-term issues, right?
Okay.
Doing it, so.
I always thought it was odd being on multiple gym floors surfaces, that you could feel the painted lines. It was never a even smooth
Yeah,
surface.
they literally are
So
painted, you're right.
Didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's what it's like.
Not wax, don't you put a wax over it?
So you're not supposed to.
Well, at first, that's what they were saying is, oh, you're cleaning it with the wrong solution. And you're supposed to use it with pH neutral, you know, you only use this and you only put this much cleaning solution in. Well, then when it didn't work, they were out there with everything. They flew a fellow in from Texas and we all came to see the magic happen. We're all standing around this guy with a Mr. Clean magic eraser on his hands and knees. It was the most ridiculous sight, remember? And he's like, is that coming up? This is their special.
But that's where it's probably scratching a little bit.
It was.
Because that's what a
Yeah.
magic eraser is.
Right, so that's what happened this last time in Columbus, where you can see where they literally set the machines and just let it run. So there's these big scuff circles, but it's fine for use, so use it for the rest of the year and then hopefully next year we'll.
So they have to redo the whole floor, like take up the lines, everything?
Yeah, they're gonna take up everything. So the base coat is the gray and everything else is painted on. So I don't know if they strip it or if they can move the machine and resurface it, from the mill it or whatever, but we're gonna find all that out and Ashley will come in and talk to everybody, because we're gonna have to approve this and make sure everybody's on board with it. He was actually pursuing me to replace the whole floor,
Right,
but
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their error.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're holding them responsible and holding them accountable. I
This is
think
why
that's
we want to
important.
see other installs. Is it the product that's failed, or did they install it wrong?
right,
If the product at this point is okay, we're willing to put that back down again if the install it properly.
Yeah.
And we think that the fault was on the installers.
Which is their
Fix it
fault,
right.
obviously, right.
they're a well-known company.
But it's a typical install, I'm thinking about what Steve just said, you could feel the lines.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you paint the lines and then put a top coat on top of that so that you don't feel the lines, does everything is sealed in?
Yeah, it's almost like the board in place that they use for the playgrounds. It's an opaque material, so I don't think they have a clear that could go over the top of the line. That's the problem. But you're right, I mean, we decided to look at other systems if we're gonna have them remove it, but
My firm has this installation in 3 current projects. I have it on 2 projects. One of them, the gymnasium was used as a auxiliary classroom while they were renovating other areas. So it had tables and chairs on it. Never had the problem that you guys have.
oh, gosh, you bet. We have there.
So,
Are they using the same vendor, the same system?
yeah,
Oh.
I told I had my interior, designers send a love letter to the rep for Target as well, just saying, you want this in, and same thing that probably Ashley did, you want this in any other specifications in our office, you're gonna figure out what's going on here. My
Did that
sus-
bill get paid?
Not retainage.
Yeah.
So I think we was still almost 8,000.
It's still under warranty, and it has been issued as a non-conforming product. So the technical thing is a 9+2, so 9 millimeters and 2 millimeters, and it's the 2 millimeters that is the wear coat on it. So I think that's what happened at some point. One of the cleaning things wore that down, and either it wasn't done, wasn't installed correctly to begin with.
Right.
And my assumption is that's probably what the manufacturer is realizing.
I think so too.
So, anyway.
Well, when they were, wasn't that told us that, yeah, the architect wasn't gonna like it, said Tabitha. Yeah, Tabitha was there on Columbus Day, and after all their efforts, he turned to her and said, I don't think the architect's gonna like this. So I think they realized at that point that, right, we had a big problem on their hands.
So she gave them a few big rocks and set them on their way.
She's been ruthless out there. She's wonderful. She's such an advocate for the schools. Yeah, we stick around everybody with a problem. Get them, Tabitha. So that's all the good news.
Okay. So the real reason why we're here tonight is, I had mentioned this at some previous meetings, in discussion, is we have the opportunity, to submit another stage 2 application to cover capital improvements for the next 5 years within, the district. This is presumably money that we are going to be spending annually anyway as part of a 5-year plan, that Mark has identified. And we are eligible for a minimum of 35% reimbursement on these, if pending a stage 2 application approval. So the short kind of math here is that, frankly, if we're spending $3 million a year, which is a high watermark in town, but if we're spending $3 million a year over 5 years, we would get over $5 million in reimbursement over the course of those 5 years. It's simply by putting the projects that we already are going to be doing and contemplating doing into the RIDE process. So to me, this is a no-brainer. It's something that we've missed a little bit on some of our current projects. But so there are a number of conversations that I think need to happen with the school committee. One is whether or not this body is going to be a standing building committee and help facilitate this. We've treated this so far as recommendations from the building committee to the school committee. This is technically outside of our current charter, but we're going to treat it just like we've treated all of the other capital requests, which is what I would like this evening is a recommendation to the school committee to proceed with an RFP for stage 2 services for capital improvements 5-year plan. We also have a cost proposal from Downs to help to continue their project management efforts over the next 6 months. Actually more than 6 months, 8 months, if we're going all the way to the RIDE approval, or the Council on Elementary and Secondary approval. And that is a fee proposal in the amount of $4,095. So this would be, we could get into discussion here in a second, but technically, we cannot award contracts, and we cannot kind of unilaterally start a new initiative. However, we can recommend as a body to the school committee to move forward in this manner. I've outlined how I believe this is relatively short money to get substantial reimbursement. You may recall that there was a lot of discussion around the fields about whether or not we were going to get RIDE reimbursement. The truth of the matter is that in retrospect, when we went back to RIDE regarding this, that they were like, this wasn't part of your 5-year plan. You didn't submit any drawings in advance. So this is a challenge to retroactively reimburse the project. This is an initiative to try and get us out of that and make sure that we're following the RIDE protocols for projects and submitting a stage 2 application for in the amount of whatever it's going to be, 10, 15, 20 million.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't beholden us to spend that money over the next 5 years, but at least we'll list projects that are eligible for reimbursement. So are there any questions from anybody?
So to clarify, the only outlay from the school committee would be the 4,000 charge to
40, yeah,
to Downs.
Yeah.
40,000, you said 4,000.
said 40,000.
Oh, I missed that.
Did I say
I thought
4,000?
that-
Yeah.
Right?
40
'Cause I literally went,
40,000.
oh, that's nothing.
$40,095.
Yeah.
And is it typical when you're doing that RIDE stuff to have an owner's project like that along with that? It's typical thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that would be the only commitment, if the school committee takes the recommendation of the building committee,
Yes.
would be for Downs, we're not putting out money for projects yet, we're just using Downs, services to ensure that those are on our 5-year capital plan and to assist us with that money.
But the
Yes.
whole stage 2 submitted together,
Correct.
right? Walk it through.
Yeah.
Route.
And then the second motion would be to put, we are likely going to need some design services, some engineering services as part of that RFP to include in the stage 2 application.
Correct.
So it's, the 40 grand isn't the only that thing that we're gonna be, we're going to be spending, but because it's not necessarily, you know, it's a fund stream that's outside of what we can kind of control from the project budget, so it needs to go to the school committee for discussion and ultimate ratification, and likely needs to, I think it's been a long time coming, we do probably need to have a conversation with the school committee about, you know, exactly how much of this you want your building subcommittee to be doing. I think we've been doing a pretty good job of making sure that, you know, some of these capital projects are moving along. So it would simply be kind of probably the terms of shift in the charter. And also, you know, probably some discussion about membership and that stuff. So I don't know.
Right, it would probably benefit this process if you guys were overseeing this, including it in your charter, because if we decide to interview the design teams and go through that whole process of vetting them out, and voting on who it's gonna be, it would be a lot easier to do and probably more relevant to do it in this.
Yeah.
This venue.
Well, there are probably people in the community that think this committee has only been focused on Dunn's, Springbrook, and State Street, when in fact, this committee has been part of the conversations about the safety vestibules and all of our buildings, the roof project, a lot of other things. And I think it makes sense to continue, but that'll be at the pleasure of the committee.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm. You guys feel okay about this?
Yes.
Okay, so the first would be an approval and recommendation to utilize Downs Construction for OPM services for stage 2 of the capital improvements 5-year plan submission arrived in the amount of $40,095.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The second motion that we'd be looking for is a recommendation to the school committee to issue an RFP for design services for stage 2 of the capital improvements 5-year plan submission to RIDE.
So moved.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a question on that. What is the timeline?
Well,
For this
that's
site,
the
are we-
sense of urgency. That's why we're meeting tonight. The next submission for stage 2 is gonna be submitted by February 15th. So we've got to get the design team on board, go through the RFP process, get the design team on board, and put this all together to go out the door by February 15th.
So I was thinking that, we are hoping that the school committee, as is currently constituted, this will be one of their last acts, or that this would go before the next school committee. It doesn't matter that much.
Well, time is of the essence.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Calendar, that would be great, unless you think otherwise.
No, I think we should move it forward. I mean, we scheduled a special meeting so that we could queue it up for the school committee at the next possible, the earliest possible convenience.
So that'll be on the sixth. Okay, just wanted to-
All right, there's a motion on the table that's been seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, anything else, Deb? I did promise that this was going to be a quick meeting, so is there anything for capital projects update, Mark?
No, I just want to note that we're in the middle of our state assessments and audits. And I heard that the town is going to be doing the same. It just seems like we're doubling up on the school district at that point. I don't know if there's an opportunity to change it. We'll go through the process again if we still have to.
State audits, like for financials, or are you looking at like building walkthrough facilities?
Assessment.
Did Studio J do a walkthrough of the school buildings as part of?
Not yet. I had heard from Studio J that they had won the contract with the town.
Yeah.
One of the places they're looking at, along with every other thing, is the schools.
No, I would surmise that that's probably, I don't think you need two existing conditions reports of each school. So maybe a simple conversation with, Sean, the town manager. Deb, can you, since you guys are BFFs now, can you check in with him?
Sure, I'll touch base with you for
Sure.
the details and then we'll reach out additionally.
So I had a question that's tangentially connected to the projects, and with Mark and Cindy here, because I know the answer lies somewhere in between. We got a call from the town manager yesterday that, and he was inquiring because he had heard that A&J, who does our plowing, is proposing a increase in plowing for the Dunn's Corner, increase in cost for the Dunn's Corner site.
I had brought A&J out there to look at the new site and the layout, and how it affects where the mounds of snow are because of the pitch and the grades have all changed. So they needed to know where we put mounds. I had asked for line item pricing to help plow the sidewalks.
Okay.
The sidewalks were never a thing at Dunn's Corner, and the custodian was able to do that no problem.
Okay.
Now we have miles and miles of sidewalk, and I've asked for some help with some line item pricing that if I needed to in a heavy storm, I could just call them up and say, I need you to hit the
All right, so that
sidewalks."
makes sense. That makes sense. So that's what we thought it might be about that. We thought it might be about some other things, but in terms of asphalt, we're looking at about 6,000 square feet less than we currently have. Sean's understanding, so he couldn't wrap his head around why the price would increase. But if we're talking about potentially including sidewalks, that makes sense.
Is that true on the asphalt? I thought it increased.
I thought it increased too.
Let's find out.
Okay.
What you just said, that concern will potentially be also when once State Street is done and over with, there's going to be that whole thing, that'll be far more sidewalks than it
I
is.
think we said State Street right after Dunn's, and we
Right.
kind of looked
I mean,
at,
it's gonna be a little
yeah,
later.
how do we deal with
Right.
it this winter
Right.
versus next winter, and what's the overall
Right.
plan gonna look like when we get
Yeah.
there?
All right, so Sean's question again to me is, or what he wanted me to pursue was, why would they be increasing the cost if it's on a per square foot basis, if we actually have less square footage of asphalt? And it sounds like we actually don't have less,
I was under the impression it was more.
But I think
and we're talking about adding the sidewalk. So I said I would inquire. I didn't know the answer, but I knew between you and Cindy and that there was someplace.
Also, just to add for the purchasing agent's email on this, when this went out to bid, maps of the locations were included. But the areas to be plowed, we asked for cost per inches of snow, not square footage.
So it's in the language of the contract that if they wanna change anything, we didn't base the current agreement on square footage.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
It's a square footage.
Yeah.
We got it, for sure.
Did they plow the two blacktops basketball courts?
They did not.
No, we did.
Yes, which now is a challenge to get to the top.
That's how I was wondering.
Okay, anything else for Mark? Okay, hearing none. Next steps, I don't have anything for next steps other than getting on the school committee's agenda. Mark, I'll talk to you at some point. I do think I have a 4 o'clock in West Warwick on Wednesday. So I'll see how quickly I can get back down here.
Okay, I won't be at Wednesday's meeting,
Okay.
so if you are not, between Mike and Steve, and we'll shepherd it through.
Okay, all right,
I have something that I think might go here.
sure.
I was approached by my third cousin of mine who apparently was approached about the bench that's at State Street that looks like our little playground. There's a bench there that was dedicated to a former teacher, and and possibly a plaque as well.
Okay,
The family of the person who definitely has the bench was asking about what was going to happen to the bench. So I said I would bring it up at this next meeting and that I would figure out either do I give them somebody's email to email or how would you know what I'm
I
saying?
can give them my email,
Okay.
sure. We have that same situation over at Dunn's.
Yeah, I remember you're talking
We
about the
actually have
tree.
three.
Yeah,
In addition to the plaques.
right.
Plaques have all been removed, they're
Yep.
being stored in the construction trailers for safekeeping. And, we're still debating on the tree, it's been damaged quite a bit, so we may replace it. Yeah, it's hanging in there, I know, it's hanging in there, so.
All right,
So
so
either way, it's either gonna be moved or replaced, but certainly, we'll take the bench, it can go wherever they'd
Well, I
like.
said, well, I had said we have like an outdoor classroom that's back there. It could go somewhere in there. And I did say, I said, well, I just know that at Dunn's, they were already talking about a tree that was a memorial and something else, and that, yes, they were going to move it, but that, I don't know, I couldn't remember. I knew there was one, at one point, nobody could find the family of one of those things.
That was one of the plaques,
Yeah.
right, in the corner.
The bench that you're talking about at State Street, was it in the back of was it in the
No.
back playscape?
Right in the front, isn't it?
Small
Oh,
playground,
yeah.
that's what we call it, the small playground. It's a little, there's a little bench, like right on the edge.
So it's not in the area that's already been ripped up.
So it will not be discarded, it'll be.
That's what I
stored,
said.
and will-
That is what I said, but I also said if the family feels like, I said, I'm sure that someone would speak to the family if they were.
I mean, it may be that we demo the building, we take it, we put it
Right.
safe, and after everything's done,
Right.
then we come back out and we say, where would you like to put it? Maybe something like that. That'd be the easiest.
I will get
Yeah.
your email to, okay, thank you.
Definitely be taken care of. And if anything else like that, if there's anything in the school, any plaques on the wall. anything
Right,
like
right.
that, yeah, just let us know, if they get in there, though.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Anything else for next steps? Okay, we continue to not have any public comment, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Good.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.